Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure you're part of our journey. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and get ready for a story that will leave you thinking. And if you love inspiring tales, a like goes a long way. You're fired. Two words that shattered the silence louder than the breaking glass. The girl's hands trembled as the remnants of the martini dripped from the sleeve of the man's $12,000 suit. In the corner of Lumière, Los Angeles' most exclusive restaurant, a figure paused mid-bite, dark eyes taking in the scene unfolding by the bar. The restaurant's crystal chandeliers cast judgment from above as the manager appeared, his smile morphing from apology to the patron into fury directed at the young waitress. Around them, conversations quieted, replaced by the subtle sounds of cell phones being positioned to capture what everyone sensed was about to become viral content. The waitress, Emily, according to her name tag, stood frozen, her student loans and rent payment flashing before her eyes as the wealthy man continued his tirade. "Incompetent help is why I usually dine at Chateau," the man announced to his companions, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "People who can't afford to be here shouldn't work here either." The manager nodded in eager agreement, already calculating the comps needed to salvage the evening. What neither noticed was the man in the corner booth slowly placing his napkin beside his plate and standing. Keanu Reeves had seen enough. If this moment made you feel something, imagine what's coming next. Hit that like button and stay with us. Subscribe now. Emily's vision blurred as she fought back tears. 6 months at Lumière, working double shifts while maintaining her scholarship at UCLA, all ending because of one slippery glass. The patron, investment banker Bradley Thompson, according to the reservation, continued broadcasting his displeasure like he was performing for the room. His Rolex caught the light with each dismissive gesture, his companions offering supportive nods while avoiding eye contact with the help. "Your final check will be processed tomorrow," the manager, Mr. Porter, whispered harshly. "Please leave through the kitchen." His tone made it clear. She was now invisible, a problem to be removed rather than a person deserving dignity. Emily's shoulders curled inward, 23 years of life compressed into this moment of public humiliation. A table of influencers nearby captured her shame on their Instagram stories, their expressions a mixture of pity and grateful relief that it wasn't them. The martini continued dripping onto the imported Italian marble floor, $300 per square foot, as Mr. Porter often reminded the staff. In the momentary lull between Thompson's pronouncements of displeasure, the soft scrape of a chair being pushed back cut through the tension. At first, nobody noticed the man rising from the corner booth, his simple black suit and casual demeanor out of place among Lumière's typical clientele. Bradley Thompson wasn't finished. "You know," he announced to his table, but projecting for the benefit of nearby diners, "this is why I keep saying we need better screening. Not everyone belongs in establishments like this." His companions chuckled on cue. One woman with diamonds dripping from her ears leaned in. "Darling, remember that awful girl at Le Bernardin last year?" The table erupted in practiced laughter as Emily stood immobilized by shock and shame. Mr. Porter's hand now firmly gripped Emily's elbow, steering her toward the kitchen's swinging doors. "Please don't make this worse," he muttered. The room's energy had shifted. What had been background music and gentle conversation was now a simmering anticipation. Phones remained up, recording, waiting. A woman at a nearby table whispered to her companion, "Isn't that—" before being shushed as the figure moved with deliberate steps. Keanu Reeves walked not with the practiced swagger of celebrities needing attention, but with the measured purpose of a man who had seen this scene before. His presence registered across the room like a slow wave. Double takes, widened eyes, nudged companions. He wasn't supposed to be here. Lumière prided itself on discretion with its A-list guests, typically seating them in the private room upstairs. Yet here he was, moving toward the unfolding drama as conversations hushed further. Emily felt the kitchen door's cold metal against her back as she watched the approaching figure with disbelief. The collective intake of breath around the restaurant confirmed what her stress-addled mind struggled to process. Keanu Reeves was walking directly toward her situation. His expression wasn't that of John Wick's intensity or Neo's determination, but something entirely human, a quiet resolve that commanded attention without demanding it. Thompson noticed the shift in the room's attention, turning to see what had diverted his audience. Recognition flashed across his face. First celebrity awareness, then confusion at the trajectory of Reeves's approach. The manager's grip on Emily's arm loosened as he too realized what was happening. "Mr. Reeves," he began awkwardly, "is everything all right with your meal? The food is excellent," Keanu replied, his voice carrying in the now silent restaurant. He stopped a respectful distance from Emily, his focus not on the manager or the wealth-flaunting patron, but on the young waitress. "I saw what happened," he continued, addressing Emily directly as if they were the only two people in the room. "It was an accident. Anyone could see that." The simple words carried weight beyond their syllables, validation in a moment of humiliation, dignity restored through basic human acknowledgement. The room's tension transformed. Phones still recording, but the audience now witnessing something unexpected. Not a celebrity meltdown or a viral moment of conflict, but the opening act of something that felt like justice. Things are about to take a turn. Don't miss what happens next. Subscribe, like our video, and keep watching. Bradley Thompson recovered quickly, social instinct overriding his momentary surprise. "Keanu Reeves," he announced with practiced familiarity, though they'd never met. "Big fan. Just finished watching the latest John Wick." He extended his hand, a power move to reclaim control of the situation. "Bradley Thompson, Apex Capital. Perhaps you've heard of us. We finance the Westridge development." His smile displayed teeth whitened to an unnatural brightness as he added, "No harm done here. Just a little staff issue being handled." Keanu didn't take the offered hand. Instead, he glanced at the martini stain spreading across Thompson's sleeve before returning his gaze to Emily. "Are you okay?" he asked, the simple question cutting through the performative exchange Thompson had attempted to establish. Emily struggled to find words, caught between professional composure and personal devastation. I've been let go," she finally managed, her voice barely audible. The truth of it settled in her chest like concrete. 6 months of perfect service record erased by 5 seconds of accident. "That seems extreme," Keanu observed, turning now to Mr. Porter, whose complexion had taken on the pallor of someone catching their career between tectonic plates. Around them, the restaurant remained in suspended animation. Diners frozen with forks midway to mouths, servers paused with trays, the pianist's fingers hovering above keys. Everyone recognized the rarity of what they were witnessing. Real-time consequences arriving for behavior usually insulated by wealth and status. "Perhaps there's another solution," Keanu continued, his tone reasonable but firm. "Accidents happen to everyone. I've certainly dropped things on set." Mr. Porter's professional smile returned, though it failed to reach his eyes. "Mr. Reeves, while we appreciate your concern, Lumière has certain standards. Our clientele expects perfection." Keanu finished for him, the word hanging in the air. "I've been in this industry a long time. Perfection isn't real. Not in films, not in restaurants." He gestured toward the room with a subtle sweep of his hand. "Everyone here has spilled something. The difference is they didn't lose their livelihood over it. Thompson's expression hardened. The interaction wasn't following the expected script where wealth dictated outcomes and celebrities stayed in their lane of mutual privilege. "Look," he interjected, voice lowering to what he considered reasonable, "the girl clearly isn't cut out for this environment. My suit is Brioni, custom-tailored. The damage is replaceable," Keanu said simply. "The suit can be cleaned or replaced. A person's dignity isn't as easily restored." The words weren't delivered with Hollywood drama, but with the straightforward clarity of someone who had seen enough real struggle to distinguish between inconvenience and injustice. 2 tables away, a tech entrepreneur who'd been live-streaming the encounter to a private group whispered, "Holy shit, is this really happening?" His companion nodded silently, thumbs typing furiously as Keanu continued. "How long have you worked here?" Keanu asked Emily directly, ignoring the increasingly uncomfortable men beside them. 6 months, she replied, voice steadier now. "I'm working through college. UCLA film program, actually." A flicker of genuine interest crossed Keanu's face. "Film program? What's your focus?" For a moment, Emily forgot the crisis unfolding around her. "Cinematography," she answered. "I'm particularly interested in how lighting creates emotional landscapes in—" She caught herself, awareness of the situation crashing back. "I'm sorry, that's not relevant to—" "It's completely relevant," Keanu replied. His attention remained fully on her, creating a bubble of authenticity that stood in stark contrast to the artificial interactions that typically populated Lumière. The technical aspects of film are just as important as the performances. Light tells the story as much as words do. Mr. Porter cleared his throat, attempting to reassert control. "Perhaps we could continue this discussion elsewhere. Our guests are trying to enjoy their evening." "Actually," came a voice from a nearby table, "I'm enjoying this conversation more than my overpriced salmon." The speaker, a woman in her 60s with silver hair and a confident posture that suggested she answered to few people, fixed Mr. Porter with a steady gaze. "I'd like to hear how this resolves." Bradley Thompson's patience evaporated. "This is ridiculous. I'm a platinum member here. I spend more in a week than she makes in a year." He jabbed a finger toward Emily. "If you're not going to handle this properly, I'll take my business elsewhere." The threat hung in the air, the kind that normally sent restaurant managers scrambling. But something had shifted in the room's power dynamics. Phone cameras continued recording, capturing not just a celebrity encounter, but a moment of moral reckoning. Mr. Porter found himself in the uncomfortable position of choosing between the immediate revenue of a regular customer and the immeasurable cost of becoming tomorrow's viral example of corporate callousness. This story is only getting deeper. What would you do in this situation? Comment below, and let's talk. Keanu's expression remained unchanged by Thompson's outburst. "I have a suggestion," he said, his calm voice a counterpoint to the banker's escalating tone. He reached into his jacket and withdrew his wallet. "I'll cover the cleaning cost for the suit, and dinner for everyone at Mr. Thompson's table." He placed his credit card on the nearest surface with the casual confidence of someone accustomed to resolving practical problems. Thompson stared at the card, then back at Keanu, thrown off balance by the practical solution. This wasn't how these situations typically unfolded. That's not the point," he stammered, the script of outrage disrupted by simple problem-solving. "What is the point?" Keanu asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. The question hung in the air, rhetorical yet demanding an answer. In the silence that followed, every person in the restaurant confronted the same realization. There was no point beyond the exercise of power over someone with less of it. Mr. Porter, sensing a path to resolution that might salvage the evening, quickly picked up the credit card. "That's very generous, Mr. Reeves. We'll take care of Mr. Thompson's party immediately." He turned to Thompson with practiced deference. "Sir, if you'll allow me to comp your drinks for the remainder of the evening as well." But Thompson wasn't ready to relinquish his position. "And what about her?" He gestured dismissively toward Emily. "You can't seriously be considering keeping her on staff after this." The silver-haired woman at the nearby table interjected again. "I'm curious about that too." All eyes turned to her as she continued. "Because I'm considering whether I want to keep coming to a restaurant that fires people for honest mistakes." The woman stood, a commanding presence despite her age. "Janet Friedman," she introduced herself, addressing the room rather than any individual. "I've been dining here weekly for 15 years. I've seen waitstaff endure remarkable abuse with grace. I've tipped accordingly." She gestured toward Emily. "I've had this young woman serve my table twice. She's exemplary." Mr. Porter's professional mask slipped further as new complications arose. "Mrs. Friedman, I assure you we value your patronage enormously." "Then show it by how you treat your staff." She cut him off crisply, "because I'm not alone in finding this display distasteful." Around the room, nods of agreement rippled through tables of diners who had been silent observers until now. Keanu remained still, his presence a catalyst rather than a dominating force. This was no longer about celebrity intervention, but about a community finding its voice. Emily stood straighter, strengthened by the unexpected support. "I work hard," she said, addressing Mr. Porter directly. "I've never been late. I've covered shifts when others called out. One accident shouldn't erase that." Her voice remained respectful, but had found its firmness. A man at another table raised his hand slightly. "I'm on the faculty at UCLA," he said. "I've seen this young woman studying in the library at midnight after working all evening. That's the kind of determination we should reward, not punish." Thompson looked around incredulously as the room continued its unprecedented rebellion against the natural order of power and privilege. "This is absurd," he declared, but his voice had lost its authoritative edge. "Are customer comforts no longer the priority here?" "There's a difference," Keanu said quietly, "between comfort and kindness. One serves just you. The other serves everyone." The simple wisdom silenced the room. Even Thompson seemed momentarily contemplative before his defensive walls reassembled. Mr. Porter stood frozen in the crossroads of competing interests, his mouth opening and closing without sound. The restaurant's owner emerged from the back office, drawn by the unusual silence in his normally bustling establishment. "What's happening here?" he asked, taking in the scene with the practiced eye of someone who had navigated hospitality crises for decades. In the compressed silence that followed, Keanu stepped back, creating space for others to speak. This wasn't his moment to dominate, but to witness. Janet Friedman summarized the situation succinctly for the owner, finishing with, "So now we're all wondering what kind of establishment you really run, Mr. Carmichael." Michael Carmichael, 68 years old and grandson of Lumiere's founder, surveyed the room. The expectant faces of loyal customers, the uncomfortably rigid posture of Thompson and his companions, the hopeful vulnerability in Emily's expression, and the quiet presence of Keanu Reeves. Unlike Porter, Carmichael had built his career on understanding that restaurants weren't merely about food, but about the human connections formed within their walls. "Emily," he addressed her directly, "accidents happen in restaurants every day. That's why we have insurance, laundry services, and spare glassware." He turned to Thompson. "Sir, we'll handle your cleaning bill and tonight's dinner, with our apologies for the accident." Thompson began to smirk until Carmichael continued. However, we cannot and will not terminate staff for honest mistakes. That's not how we operate, regardless of a customer's spending habits. If that policy doesn't meet your expectations, perhaps Lumière isn't the right establishment for your future dining needs. It's not over yet. The best part is coming. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. The restaurant erupted in subtle but unmistakable approval. Not applause, which would have been gauche in Lumière's refined atmosphere, but appreciative murmurs and knowing glances exchanged between tables. Thompson's face cycled through shock, anger, and finally the dawning realization that he had miscalculated badly. In an era where reputation could be demolished by a viral video, he found himself on the wrong side of a narrative already spreading beyond these walls. "Emily, please take 15 minutes to compose yourself. Then return to your section when you're ready," Carmichael continued smoothly. "Mr. Porter, a word in my office afterward." The implications weren't lost on anyone. Consequence had found its proper target. "Thank you, Mr. Carmichael," Emily said, professional composure returning to her voice. She turned to Thompson with remarkable grace. "Sir, I'll have our clothing specialist come take details about your suit for proper cleaning." No triumph in her tone, no vindictiveness, just the continued professionalism that had characterized her work before the accident. Thompson, recognizing the complete reversal of his position, managed a tight nod before turning back to his table companions, who suddenly seemed deeply interested in their plates. The viral moment was already shifting from outrage to resolution, phones still recording but now capturing something unexpected, the quiet restoration of balance. Keanu retrieved his credit card from Mr. Porter. "The offer stands," he said. "Their meal is on me." It wasn't about the money. It was about denying Thompson the satisfaction of walking out in righteous protest. The solution had preemptively removed that option, leaving him with the choice of either accepting the resolution gracefully or further damaging his own image. As Emily moved toward the back of the restaurant, Keanu walked with her a few steps. "Film program at UCLA is excellent," he said conversationally, as if the preceding drama had never occurred. "My friend Francis Lawrence Guest lectures there sometimes. Practical lighting versus traditional setups." Emily's eyes widened slightly. "I'm taking his master class next semester. I didn't realize you knew him." "Send me your cinematography reel when you have one ready. Not promising anything, but I know people who know people." He handed her a business card, not with flourish, but with the straightforward manner of professionals connecting. Around them, the restaurant slowly returned to its normal rhythm, the incident already transforming into something that would be discussed in hushed tones for weeks to come. The silver-haired Janet Friedman approached Keanu as Emily disappeared through the swinging kitchen doors. "That was well handled," she said without introduction. Not the Hollywood dramatics one might expect. Keanu's smile was subtle but genuine. Real life doesn't need dramatic speeches or special effects, just people doing the right thing when it counts. Janet nodded appreciatively. "Will you join me?" "My table has room, and dining alone is such a waste of good conversation." The invitation carried the confidence of someone who moved through the world on her own terms. "I'd like that," Keanu replied, following her to her table as conversations throughout the restaurant resumed their normal volume and cadence. At Thompson's table, the atmosphere remained strained, their evening irreparably altered not by a spilled drink, but by the revelation of character it had precipitated. By midnight, the first clips had accumulated over 2 million views across platforms. By morning, the count had passed 10 million. The narrative was irresistible, a perfect encapsulation of wealth versus worth, power versus principle, and the unexpected intervention of a beloved celebrity known for his humility. Lumière lesson and Keanu class trended simultaneously, accompanied by thoughtful discussions about service industry working conditions and the human cost of entitlement. Emily awoke to 17 interview requests and a schedule change from Mr. Porter that accommodated her upcoming finals, a detail he had previously refused to acknowledge. Her phone contained messages from 3 film industry professionals who had somehow obtained her contact information, each expressing interest in speaking about internship opportunities. Thompson's firm issued a carefully worded statement about their commitment to community values and respectful engagement, conspicuously avoiding any direct reference to the incident while making it clear that consequences had found their way behind closed doors. A week later, Emily served Janet Friedman's table again. The older woman was accompanied by a guest, Keanu Reeves, dressed in the same modest attire as before. He greeted Emily by name as she approached. "How was your lighting composition final?" he asked, remembering their brief conversation from the week before. "I passed," Emily replied with quiet pride. "Professor Lawrence said my understanding of shadow dynamics was surprisingly advanced." Janet smiled knowingly. Sometimes our most important lessons happen in unexpected places. "The best scenes aren't written in scripts," Keanu agreed. "They happen when real people stand up for what matters." As Emily moved professionally through her service duties, she reflected on how differently this evening might have gone. One spilled drink had nearly cost her career, yet had ultimately opened doors she hadn't imagined possible. The true power she was learning wasn't in status or wealth, but in the community that forms when people recognize their shared humanity, even in the most exclusive restaurant in Los Angeles. Wow, what a story! If this moved you, imagine what else we have for you. Hit that like button, drop a comment, and let us know what you think.